about the complaint against former Governor Hickenlooper. Hi, Lindsey.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
You
Sure.
betcha.
So
you betcha.
we had previously talked to Frank McNulty, who filed the complaint with the Independent Ethics Commission, and one of the things he was pointing out is, Hickenlooper was flying to the Bilderberg conference, he's flying all over the universe, basically, and questions arise well, who's paying for all of this? And I think what did Frank point out? He said he was officiating the marriage of Elon Musk's somebody
Years later,
months after it, and coincidentally, right before Colorado signed a deal that was beneficial to electric cars like Tesla. I mean, a lot of questions about it. To be honest, Lindsey, I was kind of surprised seeing that Hickenlooper appointed most of the people on the Independent Ethics.
Well, he didn't appoint most of them.
But some who did not recuse themselves, which is interesting. But they decided they dismissed some of it, but they're going forward with other parts of it. What are your thoughts on all of it?
Yeah, and they decided unanimously, which is great. It leaves no question that these remaining flights deserve investigation. And these ethics laws are in place for a reason, and so I'm really glad that they're continuing to pursue them, because he really should be held accountable. He's not above the law, and it shows a pattern of behavior that has probably existed for a very long time, although the statute of limitations for these complaints is just a year.
That's right. There were a lot of other complaints that they dropped, right?
Yeah. Are you aware of how corrupt and unethical the Independent Ethics Commission is? It is one of the most corrupt organizations in all of Colorado. And you have to understand, they're people. They keep mayors, legislators. They keep on bringing them back and back and back. There's some who have been caught up in this morass for 3 and 4 years.
Although they tend to be Republicans.
Huh?
The ones who have been held in the morass tend to be Republicans.
Well, yeah, they tend to be Republicans. Of course they tend to be Republicans.
But this one is Hickenlooper.
And Bill Leone was appointed by Hickenlooper. So he was, they had these things, it's been 3 months? And everybody else is going rig. Leone and Fat Matt Smith, the most corrupt man in Grand Junction. They are not going to do anything to Hickenlooper. This is just to throw it out as fast and quick as they can. Those two are the most morally repugnant characters in all of Colorado, and the fact that they're on an ethics commission really is hilarious. So I hate to tell you, they're not going to do anything.
But still, Lindsey, Chuck's a little pessimistic here.
Pessimistic. I'm optimistic that they're still looking into it at least, and that there's still press coverage.
There's press coverage. I think that's the great part about it, because they couldn't. It's clear that he's gotten these flights not because he was officiating at a wedding.
Well, do you know any of the details of the complaints, Lindsey? Or
yeah, a little bit. Well, so you brought up the trip to the Tesla wedding, and it sort of gets convoluted. But there was also, aside from these complaints, there was a letter that Senator Cook wrote last year to then Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman, asking her to look into what he said was a trip to Nevada. They said he didn't go to Nevada, but that happened right before he wrote these new California emission standards.
Right.
And he went to Texas on the brother of
right. That was Texas. Senator Cook said there was another Nevada trip, and so this, now that Attorney General Kaufman isn't in office, this is sort of fallen by the wayside. I can't find any news coverage on it, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, and there were some other complaints too, as I recall, that Frank was talking about, where, for instance, Hickenlooper would take a ride in private jets and would say, "Oh, well, they were going my way anyway."
Going my way,
right?
just like that old thing. And he had a chief of staff. He had a chief of staff who had his own plane, right?
Right.
So he'd kind of go, "Oh, I just got a ride with Bill."
He was
Who's
heading
Bill?
to California.
Bill is my chief of staff. Oh, okay. Well, there's no problem there, Governor.
The whole thing is, well, here's the thing. Let me ask you this, where I think it gets particularly interesting is, Hickenlooper is still putting himself out there as a potential presidential candidate. I think he's in somewhere now. He was in Iowa. Now I think he's heading back east again. How do you think that weighs into all of it?
Yeah, that's interesting. So he's been in Iowa. He's been in New Hampshire, those early voting states. And there was a poll that came out recently that 60% of people in these early voting states have never heard of him. He's on the list of almost 20 Democrat potential or official candidates. He's at the bottom.
Right.
And so this is one of the first things that people could hear about him, as long as we keep it in the news, that he's under investigation for these ethics complaints. and that'll put him in a bad spot as he keeps saying he's going to announce officially in March. So we'll see. We'll see when that actually happens. But this will definitely put a wrench in his announcement and put him on the defensive.
That's why the Ethics Commission is doing the bum's rush to get
to hurry up and get it done.
Yeah.
Although, we are talking, Lindsey, about, this is a Democratic Party that had the Clintons, right? So it doesn't appear that, ethics is one of their overriding concerns.
They're not big on that.
We're talking with Lindsey Singer with Colorado Rising Action. Can I switch gears on you a little bit? Because I know you're up to speed on this issue. The national popular vote thing, as I understand it, it's being discussed in a House committee right now. I think it's just a terrible idea. I think it gives Colorado voters, it gives our vote away. We might as well just say, hey, whatever California did, I guess we have to do too. What are your thoughts on that and any way to stop this?
It's a terrible idea. And the fact that Democrats are willing to give away so much of our individual power or our power as a state now that they're in charge is so confusing to me, mind-boggling. I don't know what the right word is, but it just seems very strange because, they're not going to be in power forever, and it's not just...
Well,
yes,
Chuck is pessimistic about that, too.
In case you've, because I'm the only one who's actually tracked what they've done with Ted and Polis and everything else. They're going to be in power forever. You will never get them out, ever.
Well, if they get this national popular vote.
Yeah, well, they'll get that nationally. Yeah, you'll never win. Republicans will never win elections. No Republican can win a statewide election today. None.
Well,
Zero.
Lindsey,
and we've got Cory Gardner coming up at 5:30 on Stefan's show. And, of course, he's been watching, and he doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, they're not going to let you call in. But.
Yeah, well, no, I just say, hey, do you realize that you have zero chance of being reelected? Zero.
Well, all right, but
not because of anything about you, though there's plenty of things wrong with you, but not because of you, but they've rigged the system. I mean, it's just amazing what a great job they've done on utterly rigging the system.
Well, and Lindsey, because I know I don't want to be as pessimistic as Chuck. However,
there you go.
Can you explain why? Because to people, they may think, well, with this, hey, one person, one vote, the national popular vote, we should go with it. It's one of those things that kind of makes sense until you actually start to think about what it means to smaller states, smaller populous states like Colorado. Can you explain why this is such a bad idea?
Yeah, well, so the whole reason for the Electoral College way of doing our national elections is to give the states more power in the way that these national elections are run. So what one vote, one person, one vote means is giving the actual way the state runs its election and the power it holds there, taking that power away. Yes. And giving it to big cities. Maybe people who live in Denver think this is a good idea because most of them are liberal and they don't like President Trump. But in states like most of Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, the Electoral College is really important to make sure that those states have just as much of a say in a national election as California, New York, Texas.
Well, and to a certain extent, you're right. I mean, whether Cory Gardner's senator or not, if we get rid of the Electoral College, he's meaningless anyway. I use this example, and it's kind of a joke, but it actually is real. It would be as if you were a presidential candidate and we were just going with the national popular vote. There are big cities that just a handful of big cities would overwhelm everybody else in the country. So you could be a presidential candidate and say, okay, I'm going to get rid of all federal income tax in New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, L.A., and Miami, right? And instead, we're going to increase it in Denver and Cheyenne. That would pass, right? And you'd be sitting here in Denver being like, well, wait a minute. But
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Colorado's popular vote could go one way, and it wouldn't matter because all of our electoral votes would go to the national popular vote.
Yeah, and can you imagine? I don't know if you saw it, but they're going to decide that the Democratic primary in Iowa is going to be done by the phone.
By phone.
So in California, because they want to control everything, they'll say let's just do internet or phone. You don't need, we don't care what country you come from. And they will just steal the election. Now, luckily in Colorado, the Democrats have already stolen the state, but this will allow them to steal federally, which is, kind of discouraging in some ways.
It is, and I'm going to be with you, Chuck, on the pessimistic train on this. There's really not that much we can do to hold it off in Colorado. We got to hope that other states do hold it off and that they can't move forward with it.
Well, there's also a question of whether you can just do it by a compact of states. I mean, hopefully the Supreme Court could say no. You need to get Congress's approval. The Democrats, of course, there's no wording that they can't get around in their mind. But because I think it's inevitable to get 270.
Oh, sure.
Our only hope is
they've been working it for a long time.
Is that it goes before the courts, and the court said no, you can do it with congressional approval.
And Lindsey, I wanted to ask you about this with Colorado Rising Action. You guys are, a conservative Republican leaning group that tries to push these kinds of principles. This is why we talk about the Blueprint Colorado, and he's our friend, but he's Satan.
Devious, Satan.
And he's ahead of the National Popular Vote program, is Ted Trimpa. These guys are clever, and they start out just trying to get control of the state legislatures, and then they get this kind of stuff through, right? They realize they're never going to get it through Congress or something like that, but they get enough state legislators, and that's why the state races are so important at these local levels. And I wanted to ask you a little bit. We were all talking at the beginning of the legislative session, the one here in Colorado, maybe the Democrats won't overreach. Well, I think that was wishful thinking on our part, don't you?
Yeah, it sure was. And your point about Ted Trimpa, I mean, they're clever, they're patient, and they care about winning more than they care about their principles. And I don't think I ever want to be that kind of a person, but it is nice to win,
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to be doing much of that.
Well, no, you're right.
I mean, the state legislature was crooked by the Colorado Supreme Court and Mary Malarkey. They stole the Colorado legislature for the Democrats back in 2012. You may not have been around back then, but they literally stole it and made it impossible for Republicans because they gerrymandered all the districts the Democrats' favor. So they've done that. So with connivance of the court, everybody's right. We don't exist in a democracy in Colorado. We exist no more are we a democracy than, let's say, Venezuela is under Maduro. And I don't think a lot of Republicans realize it. They're just fat, dumb, and happy. They just sit there and kind of go, "Oh, great, yeah, ballot harvesting. Oh, yeah, you can register up to the day of the election. Oh, wow. What do you know? Walker Stanton lost by almost 12 points. How'd that happen? Must have been Trump. Yeah, it was Trump. I mean, there's just Ted and those guys are rolling over laughing because they've rigged the whole system, and they have this stupid establishment people going, well, it was probably Trump. They don't like Trump.
Well, hopefully the redistricting process that just got passed will make a little bit of a difference.
No, it's crooked. They've already figured out how to crook it because it first came out in California. You're right that in the sense that if they'd gotten the one where they could just do it by the state legislature, that would have been crooked. But they've already figured out how to corrupt it already because that's all they do. They've got I think 60 people in Denver and another 80 people in California working on corrupting that system so they cannot lose.
They call it something like rising, not your words. You guys are the Colorado Rising Action. They have other fake words that be like, it doesn't say corrupting the system. It'd be like making America better for all of you.
Make it better for all. They've already figured out how to corrupt it, so it will not improve. But what the heck? Who cares?
So to your point about the overreach, Julie, is that's kind of the best we can hope for right now. If they overreach enough, I think Republicans will get motivated enough to do something about it.
Well, and I want to give you guys credit, and Patrick Neville.
Patrick,
you are. I mean, this is the first that Patrick Neville had an op-ed in the Denver Post this morning.
Yeah,
complaining about the House, the sex education bill, Colorado Rising Action. You guys
doing a great job.
What I've noticed, Lindsey, is that Republicans in Colorado, for the first time, or much more so than ever before, I guess, in my experience, you guys are doing a lot to get the word out to say, hey, we're keeping an eye on this. We want to talk about this one. People know about it. So congratulations to you guys for that. And then I guess part after that, let me see, what else is out there that you are keeping your eyes on that we need to be keeping our eyes on?
Yeah, thanks for that. It's important because we can't just pay attention right before big elections because of the way that the Democrats operate and because these issues are important year-round.
Sure.
So we're going to try to do that. We're also watching a lot of education bills come into the legislature and get voted down on party lines, which is disappointing, especially given everything else that's going on with education in Denver right now. But, just a bill to reimburse teachers for school supplies, a bill to give high-performing teachers a little bit more money. These things, Democrats say they want them, and then when it comes time to put their money where their mouth is, they vote on party lines, which is very disappointing.
It is.
Right, it is. Well, and we had a member of the head of the Denver Classroom Teachers Association on, and while we are happy that he came on, we asked him about those, and he goes, "Oh no, we don't like those." Well, and it's like, well, that's why the Democrats voted him down then, because the teachers union told them to. So
right. Meanwhile, there's some legislators out, on the picket line with some of these teachers. Meanwhile, they're holding the purse strings.
Right.
Like, get back inside and do something about it.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
Well, Lindsey, where can people find out more about you guys, and where can they kind of, with you, keep track of some of the things that are going on?
ColoradoRisingAction.org is a great place. It's where we hold all of our information, and you can sign up for our emails. If you're on Facebook, we're Colorado Rising Action, and we're also on Twitter.
All right. I follow you. I recommend everybody else does too.
Lindsey, so great to have you on.
Thank you. Have a great day.